Happy morning. In today's session, we are going to discuss about the video compression standards H.261 and H.263. The digitization formats used in these two compression standards and the methodology adopted in this compression standards and their applications are discussed in this session. First, we'll see what are the features of H.261. The digitization format used are CIF, Common Intermediate Format, and the Quarter CIF. These CIF is used in the video conferencing application and QCIF is used in the video telephony applications. And the frame refresh rate adopted in these applications in this standard is 30 frames per second for CIF, and it is half of that, 15 or 7.5 for QCIF. And only I and P frames are used for encoding the information, and the transmission bandwidth, it is available at variable data rates starting from 64 kbps to multiples of 64 kbps. So the maximum value is 2 Mbps. 32 into 64 kbps gives 2.048 Mbps. The encoder of H.261. This H.261 encoding follows the P-frame encoding mechanism. Here, the target frame contains the frame to be encoded. The frame to be encoded is given as an input to a difference computation, and then it is the pixel values are converted into the frequency coefficients using our discrete cosine transform like our JPEG and iframe encoding and all, and then this frequency coefficients are quantized using a tables, and then it is entropy encoded and transmitted. But the basic difference is that this quantization is not a fixed table. This quantization value is varied according to the frame rate, produced, and that is being analyzed with the help of our FIFO buffer. And then this quantization control and FIFO buffer I can explain with an example. Now, to compute the difference between the target frames and the reference frame contents, the reference frame contents are obtained by dequantizing the frequency coefficients and by taking an inverse discrete cosine transform to get back our reference frame contents. And these two are compared to do the further computation. And we have already discussed in the P-frame encoding. There are three possibilities. The first one is when there is no difference at all, then only the macro block address is transmitted. When there is a difference but the object has moved, then both the macro block address and the motion vector will be transmitted. If the difference is more than or greater than the threshold, then it is encoded as a new block. Now we will see the mechanism of FIFO buffer. This FIFO buffer works on two thresholds, low threshold and high threshold. When the information is falling below the threshold, that means more number of bits are available. You can use more number of bits. Therefore, the quantization threshold is decreased. When the quantization threshold is decreased, the number of bits used to represent each value is getting increased. Therefore, automatically the FIFO buffer will be getting filled up. When it goes below the high threshold, when it goes beyond the high threshold, that means at a particular instant the buffer is going to be filled completely. Therefore, the quantization threshold is increased. That means the values to be encoded is getting decreased. That requires automatically lesser number of bits. So it can be explained, that is, if the contents of the buffer falls below low threshold, we are decreasing the quantization threshold. Otherwise, we will increase the quantization threshold. This is a mechanism based on that the quantization threshold is varied. And the GOB structure, that is the data structure to store the information in the thing, is referred as a GOB. Here, the MB refers our macro blocks. The GOB structure of H.261, here it is organized like 3 rows and 11 columns. 3 rows and 11 columns. It is well known that the size of the macro block is 16 by 16. Therefore, when you have 3 rows, then the width is referred as 3 into 16, 48 pixel. And here the length is referred as 11 macro blocks. Therefore, 11 into 16 is 176 pixels. And this is the GOB of, this is the structure of our GOB. Now, in the first slide of our H.261, we have seen there are two digitization formats employed. One is the CIF. The CIF resolution is given as 352 by 288. How it is being obtained? By organizing the GOBs with 2 columns and 6 rows. So when you have this width is 176, one GOB width is 176. Therefore, this 2 into 176 gives 352 pixels. Now here we have 6 GOBs, therefore 6 into 48 gives 288 pixels. Whereas in the QCIF resolution, that is 1/4 of the CIF, therefore only GOB 1, 3, 5 are used, the rest of the things are eliminated, that is just half of that. 352 divided by half, that is our 176, and here also 3, therefore 3 into 48 is 144 pixels. The next thing we are going to see the frame format of H.261. So, it refers the way in which the informations are being transmitted. Now, the first one, the picture start code, it tells where the information is available, where the information is started. And the temporal reference, that is the difference between the time difference between our this one blocks. And the picture type, it tells whether it is I frame or P frame. And we know that we have two resolutions, CIF and QCIF. Therefore, the group of blocks, if it is of CIF, we will have 12 macro blocks, and for QCIF, we will have only 3 macro blocks. And within the group of blocks, we have how many macro blocks? And within the macro block, we will have 6 blocks, and within the block, you will have this DC skip and value. So, in the block, we will have all these informations like quantization value, motion vector, and the type, and this address refers our macro block address. The next standard is our H.263. There is a slight variation between H.261 and H.263. In the H.263, it is used for video conferencing application, whereas its data rate is comparatively lesser than our H.261, and it supports 5 picture formats: sub, QCIF, CIF, 4 CIF and 16 CIF. By observing it, you can find out QCIF, then CIF will be double of that, 176 into 352, therefore 352, and this here this Y refers the luminance and UV refers our chrominance. And then 4 CIF means it is double, otherwise 176 into 4, and then 16 CIF and double of this one, therefore you will have 1408 and so on. In this way, according to the data rate requirement, we can go for 5 of these options. The bitrate is less than 64 kbps when we go for the other one, and here it uses only B frame encoding, whereas H.261 uses an P frame encoding. The very attractive information of our H.263 is how the error is propagated, and once the error is propagated, how it is being handled in the H.263, how it is getting minimized. What are the mechanisms available to minimize this propagation of an error? Assume that this is our encoder. It has this encoder refers 3. Assume it is an QCIF resolution. Therefore, 1, 3, 5. Only 3 are there. And we all know that in the GOB, can you see the number of lines here? That indicates you have 3 rows and 11 columns. That is the indication of that line. For the simplification, it is represented like that. And totally, in this example, some 5 frames, and it is still being transmitted. And in the decoder, while transmitting the frame 1, the third GOB got corrupted. The third GOB got corrupted. And without knowing that, the second frame is intra-coded. That is our bidirectional encoding. That is B frame encoding. Therefore, the second frame will be encoded based on this frame 1 and the frame 3. And as the first frame got affected, this error, this is referred as a corrupted macro blocks. This corrupted macro blocks is propagated. Because of that, the corruption, this corruption is, the error is propagated here. And for the third frame, again you are going to refer the second frame. Therefore, again the error is propagated and so on. When you observe like this, at a particular point of a time, it affects, actually it has affected only one GOB. Now, due to the propagation of an error, it has affected two GOBs. So, how to handle this propagation of an error? How will you track it? Therefore, the next one is the tracking mechanism of our error. As in the same example, in this case, once here that we have taken the same thing, it is corrupted. Now, before it is known, after receiving all this frame, you have to send an acknowledgement. If it is received properly, you need not to send. If it is corrupted, you have to send a negative acknowledgement where 1,3 refers in the GOB3 of frame 1. 1,3 refers GOB3 of frame 1 got affected. Before that intimation, that frame 2 has encoded with reference to this one. Therefore, that the error is propagated. And here also the error is propagated. But before that, the 3 is identified. Therefore, for encoding the 4, this 3 is not given. It is encoded in the intra-coded format that is specified here. It is encoded. These blocks are referred as an intra-coded. So, because of this intra-coding, the error is tracked and it is not further propagated. Another mechanism for handling this is an independent segment decoding. Independent segment decoding. As in the first diagram, here we have taken the first frame is not affected, the second frame got affected, and in the second frame the third block got affected. So, since the GOB is corrupted, if you have the error is getting propagated. When we do the independent segment decoding, how it is being handled? You see that it is transmitted, and during this transmission some problem occurs. Therefore, it transmits a negative acknowledgement. Here 2,3 indicates second frame and the third GOB got affected. So, once it is transmitted, once it has identified independent segment decoding, once it has identified that it is decoding that third segment, third GOB alone separately, independently, it is not referring any reference. Therefore, it is not propagated to the other GOBs. That is the advantage of our independent segment decoding. Thank you.